We are going live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
I'd like to call this regular scheduled Oscoda Township Board meeting for April 26th to order. If we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Oh.
No flag.
Just noticed. Right. Behind the curtain. I'm checking.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
That's right, exactly right. I don't see it. Oh.
I'll just do it anyway.
Wait. That's right. Not to you. Never pretend one.
It's probably out in the lobby. I can get an image of it.
Pretend. I don't know.
I used to
Go in the same direction.
Hold on a second.
There you go.
Somebody?
Perfect.
Hey, there we go.
Oh, we got it.
All right.
There
Thank
it
you.
is.
All right.
There we go. Right there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. Oh, sorry for the delay. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. McGuire? Mr. Spencer?
Here.
Mr. Taser?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wusterbark?
Present.
Mr. Palmer?
Here. Next is the agenda or additions. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support, Spencer.
Motion by Mr. Sutton, supported by Mr. Spencer. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbark?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes. We have an agenda. Next is our first public comment. For this public comment, I request that you fill out a card and come to the podium and state your name, please. Do we have any cards?
I do not have any.
No card. Okay, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. This is our regular meeting minutes from April 8th, 2024. Our finance payment of bills from prepaids from April 23rd in the amount of $12,658.38. Check run of April 16th for $31,854.04. And the investment report from March. It says 2023. I believe it's for 24. Are there any questions on that? I get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Support, Sutton?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbark?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes. Motion passed. Next, we come to our subcommittee reports. We could start with Mr. Freeman on our engineering report.
Good evening. Engineering report for April 2024. Phase 6, the Colbeth area, shaft construction is going along pretty well. No major issues that they've come across, so they're, I'll cautiously say, ahead of schedule. Because once you say that, then things will change. But no, things seem to be going well out there. Phase 7, the water service line contract. Rowe Professional Services is going through the last of the bid document there with hopefully that'll be out for advertisement. If not next week, the first week of May, which would then put it on for bid opening in June and getting a contractor on that. I might have mentioned at the last meeting, I was part of a meeting with Eagle and Department of Public Health. Kind of came out of the blue. I thought it was maybe for funding or reimbursement funding for water services that have been completed by property owners outside of the grant. Fortunately, it wasn't. It was whether or not there is going to be C2, R2 funding available after we're done, and then they've got to, at higher levels of Eagle, they've got to approve it, that they would go back and capture all of the well abandonments that were not required in the earlier phases of the water main projects. So that was what that meeting was about. But I did put it on the table about reimbursement for those services, and they didn't think C2, R2 funding would be a vehicle for that, but the people that need to be are now well aware at that level. So, and we've got roughly, I worked with the water department, there's on Loud Drive and some others in the area, we just tried to capture a time frame from 2020 moving forward of those that have been installed by property owners, and the number is somewhere between 40 and 50, according to the records and utility billing. So if we get to that point, obviously we'll fine tune that number. On the phase 7, we're looking at probably about 150 water services that'll be included in that bid. Again, letters will go out, not sure that 150 will sign up, but there will be 150 that are eligible for that phase 7 township or PFAS contaminated area township-wide project. The water system, the 2024 DWRF, that is now kind of dovetailing with the EPA community grant because we're using the DWRF as the local match for the EPA. That is going into environmental review at the Eagle or the state level, and we should get clearance on that here shortly, and then that'll give us a little bit better schedule as far as the EPA community grant. The DWRF, the schedule for that, and then down below the sanitary sewer, the CWSRF, same schedule. Advertising in May, bid opening is scheduled for June 25th, and board award would be on July 8th. Those dates are set based on the closing that Eagle has to have for those two projects. Ratliff Park, DPW has finished the launch out there except for part of the railing, which they'll take care of once the launch is installed. We've contacted the launch manufacturer and installer. The actual installer actually lives here in Oscoda Township. The company's out of Hale. And I think on tonight's agenda, there's a bid or a quote from that company on that. So as soon as that gets resolved and didn't sound like there was a long lead time for it. So I believe the lake level now is up. That needs to be up at its summer level, and they'll be there to install that as soon as we get to that point. So that'll wrap up that project. Hull Island, we have a coordination meeting with Huron Pines tomorrow, just on the next steps and starting to get public information updates out there. Phase 3 trail is essentially all done. We're still just waiting for the final MDOT approval that the paperwork is done and that then I can submit for the final trust fund grant reimbursement to close out that project.
Rick, if I could just
Yeah.
interject, sorry to interrupt, but we had advertised that there was going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony on May 11th. We've postponed that until October due to the fact that a lot of the people that were involved in the bike path in the very beginning of it, in the early stages of the IET, were not able to be here for the May 11th. So since phase 4 is going to be beginning here soon, going south on 23, we thought let's hold off until October, get more of the people involved that were involved with the bike path from the very beginning. And then we can have a ribbon cutting for not only Phase 3, but Phase 4, which will be the part going from Oscoda down 23. So that's the plan now. I just wanted to get that out there because we had announced, and there was a flyer going around that we were having a ribbon cutting on the 11th. And last Thursday, the board decided to change that to October. So, sorry.
No, that's fine. Coming down through this, water loss, we're still investigating the area up on River Road. We've got a draft map put together between F&V's personnel and John Henry's personnel, talking to Oscoda Township. We're getting that laid out as far as what we think the cross connections are, and hopefully for next month we'll have a little bit better understanding on that. And then obviously chasing down other issues. We had another water main leak over the weekend. Again, just the condition of the pipe and the bedding and such is you would think this time of the year wouldn't be a water main break with the frost out of the ground, but it happens pretty much any time depending on the condition of the pipe. Just general engineering activities. We submitted the trust fund grant for Oscoda Beach Park on April 1st. We submitted the passport grant for the Oscoda Huron Sunrise Park on April 1st. And we're continually researching several other funding sources. We've got some pretty good information through Eagle, MCOG, and NEMCOG as far as the Eastern Michigan Council of Governments and the Northeastern Michigan Council of Government. They have some funding opportunities that we're researching for adding on to those two Eagle applications that we submitted. Also researching community consumers energy grants for the Sabo River Trail future project. Holiday Inn Express, John Henry is out there rebuilding that section of River Road as we speak, as part of the water main work they did and the EPA community grant, and getting that road restored back to acceptable condition. So, and that's my report.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Rick? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Next is the Airport Authority. That would be me. We had a meeting last Thursday. There's a lot of things going on with our airport, but the biggest news right now is that the executive committee that was interviewing for new directors for the airport, they have not been able to find a viable candidate that they like. So for at least the next 6 months, Mr. Jack Brown and Brenda McNeil, who are currently working at the airport. One is the manager and one is the business. Brenda McNeil is the business manager for the leases for the properties. They will be running the airport for the next 6 months, and I think they're very capable. Jack has the necessary licenses that are required for an airport director, and he's getting one of the employees trained and applying for the license that required. So we will have the coverage at the airport that is necessary with the proper licensed people there. So that's really the biggest news for the airport. Next is Planning Commission, Mr. Taser.
Yeah, the Planning Commission held its regular meeting. They are moving forward with the process for electric vehicle charging station ordinance and the vacant building ordinance, the short-term rental permits, and discussed upcoming training opportunities. They discussed, which is on our packet tonight, the proposal for the marijuana fees. They sent the board a proposal for that. They discussed to amend the Article 1, Section 14-1 in the general section of the municipal code book to add liability and verbiage for cost recovery for fire department, including potential fines for unattended fires causing damage. There's that discussion going on. And there was also 2 conceptual review cases that were presented and discussed. So that's for future development, and so that's it.
Okay, thank you. Next is the ZBA, Mr. Spencer.
Still haven't had a meeting, so no update there. Thank you.
Next is the LDFA, Ms. McGuire, she's in Florida, I believe. EIC, Mr. Sutton.
At our regular meeting on April 4th, 2024, we approved the Take Flight Art Contest. Also, we approved procuring a corridor improvement authority subject matter expert and Match on Main grant applications to be due on April 11th, 2024 by 10 a.m. At our April 11th, 2024 special meeting, we approved Match on Main grant submissions for Teresa Eidelman and PKL. We also approved a corridor improvement authority proposal to go to the board, which is on tonight's agenda, and a job description for community development director that is on tonight's agenda as well.
All right, thank you. Next is the 911 board, Mr. Spencer.
At the last meeting, they were talking about the additional repeaters that they put on the towers, the more powerful repeaters, and they're waiting for leaves to be on the trees to complete the testing on that. If it goes well, they may add a couple of repeaters to a couple other towers just to ensure coverage over our area. And they're talking about, the 911 board that I'm on actually passed a 70-cent increase on the telephone bills for 911 fees. So that's going to the county, and we'll see if it passes there. And if it does, then your phone bill might go up 70 cents
Okay,
per month, of course.
all right, thank you. Next is the Hustler board, Ms. Klein.
So at our regularly scheduled board meeting for HUSHRA, we awarded the Process Safety Management and Risk Management Plan update to Fair Graham. And we also had quotes received for the treatment plant for HVAC controls and ductwork, which was awarded to Goyette. And that was it.
Okay, thank you. The RAD, Mr. Cummings.
Yep. So I don't have anything further from the last meeting a month ago. There wasn't anything that I've received from the Air Force. I would just look to you, Bill, and Tammy, if you have anything.
No?
Anything further?
Okay, thank you. Cedar Lake Improvement.
Tammy?
All right, so at the last Cedar Lake Improvement Board meeting, old business was to review herbicide treatment bids, and the board voted to award to Solitude for 1 year. There was an update on the Cedar Lake Improvement Board website, which is up and running. We awarded the survey of the Jones Ditch property to RIG, and we reviewed the 2023 hydrology report, and the treatments, it seems, for Cedar Lake are looking very well. And we paid bills.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Utility Subcommittee meeting, Mr. Westergaard.
Yes, we've met twice in the last month, on April 9th and April 18th. Some of the highlights, we've been reviewing the upcoming RFPs that's actually are on the agenda tonight. Recommendations to the board to approve both for water and sewer and leak detection. Old business was water loss. Mr. Freeman just addressed that. And other than a meter pit installation issue, that's it for the both of the meetings.
All right, thank you. Next is the Asabo Riverwalk Advisory Committee. Is there someone here in that committee who would like to speak?
Hi, I'd just like to give an update on what we've been doing for the last few months. You may have a map in your packet. and this is the map of the Oscoda River Trail phases. It's from a project that was proposed before our group. The Oscoda Oscoda River Boardwalk, the OARB, was formed. This map shows the ideal footprint for a riverwalk in our town. The OARB, along with Rick Freeman, our township engineer, made our first effort at grant writing in February by sending our project information to the Consumers Energy Foundation for the Put Your Town on the Map pitch competition. We are hoping for funding for a trailhead welcome center at a location where the Iron Bell Trail and the OARB will hopefully meet. We didn't make it to the top 10, but we came up with a vision for the Trailhead Welcome Center that we are hoping to use in the project going forward. The footprint of our project has changed in the last 2 months. We are now looking to establish the boardwalk starting at Gilbert's property and going to the south to the Mill Street Bridge. Peggy Gilbert is interested in pursuing the project and is planning to contact the PNC Bank to check on their continued interest. Rob Miles, owner of the Finish Line Park, is also interested in our project. Peggy would like help with the easement language as it pertains to the grants that we will be applying for. We understand that a walkthrough by Eagle would be helpful with this. Huron Pines also did a walkthrough of our site last fall and is interested in helping us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next, we have our superintendent's report. First up is the utility subcommittee RFP request. Ms. Klein?
Okay, our first item report is a request from the Utility Subcommittee to move forward with requests for professional services for the township's water and wastewater. As we are now expanding the water system and lagoon treatment process, our scope of work is changing. Therefore, these changes warrant seeking new proposals. The draft RFP in your packet still requires attorney review and possible additional considerations, but approval to move forward with the process is still required. I would ask that the board consider approving the request from the Utility Subcommittee to go out for contracted services for wastewater and water upon attorney review and approval of the RFP.
I would make a motion to approve the request from the Utility Subcommittee to go out for contracted services for water and wastewater contracted services upon attorney review and approval of the RFP.
Support, Sutton.
Jeremy, would you amend that to also include for Ms. Klein to manage any current contract notifications that may be required and/or changes from the attorney without coming back to the board?
Yeah. I would include that.
I would still support that.
Okay. We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Discussion. Anyone have any questions on this? I think this is promoted because our current contract with our current engineering firm, F&B, is coming up, is expiring this year, and according to their contract, we have to have 180 days notice if we're going to do an RFP, so this will get us within the 180 days. And since our system has expanded, especially our water, since it required some additional language in this contract, which Mr. Freeman has worked on for quite some time to get this RFP put together. So I think it's important that we get it to the attorney for review and get it out for engineering firms to bid on.
And I'd just like to add, there was a lot of work behind the scenes that Mr. Freeman and Ms. Klein did, really outside of the committee meeting. You know, everybody on the committee contributed, but primary was those two, so I thank you.
Yes. Any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the leak detection RFP.
Okay, our second report item is also a recommendation by the Utility Subcommittee for a leak detection services request for proposals. This service will help the township locate leaks within the water distribution area and recheck areas that have been previously repaired to verify a positive fix. I would ask that the board consider approving the leak detection RFP as recommended by the Utility Subcommittee.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to proceed with the RFP process on behalf of the Oscoda Township Board for the leak detection RFP, pending attorney approval, including any revisions that may need to be made after attorney approval.
Support.
A motion by Mr. Wusterbar, support by Mr. Taser to go ahead with the leak detection RFP. Discussion, questions, comments?
I think this is something we need to get done as we're constantly looking for this additional water every month in the reports.
Yeah, we continue to have water main leaks and breaks, and I think that's just a indication of the age of our system. There's a major one over off Weir Road this weekend. I went out to look at it, and there was a huge stream of water that was shooting up 2 feet in the air. There's a lot of water coming out of there. That didn't just happen overnight. It would indicate to me, I'm not an expert, maybe Catherine would disagree with this, but there probably was a smaller leak there to begin with, and over time it expands and eventually blows it open to where you have this huge stream of water fountain coming out of the ground. So we are working on the leak, the water loss, but I think at this point we need to have some professionals come in and do some testing on our lines and see if we can track down some of these leaks before they start having a giant fountain coming out of the ground. So, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbar?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton? Yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next, we have our row invoices. Ms. Klein?
Our third report item will be the following listed invoices from Rowe Engineering for services rendered. These invoices require Township Board approval.
Are all the account numbers correct on there?
Yes, they are.
Well, then I would make a motion to approve paying invoice number $112,686 for the Iosco Exploration Trail in the amount of $130 even, to be paid from account 101-751-880.572.
Support, Sutton?
Motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbar?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve paying invoice number $112,708, the 2024 Oscoda Township DWSRF, for the amount of $44,205.25 to be paid from the 2024 DWSRF checking.
Support, Sutton?
I have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve invoice 112708. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbar?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make an additional motion to approve invoice number $112,709 for the Oscoda Downtown Water Main in the amount of $1,155 to be paid from the 2024 EPA Community Grant Checking Account.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Wusterbarth to approve invoice 112709. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wusterbar?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I would make a motion to approve invoice number $112,711, Water System Improvement Project 2023, in the amount of $16,192.75 to be paid from the C2R2 fund after reimbursement is available or if funds are currently available.
Support, Cummings.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbar?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
Would make a motion to approve invoice number 112,715 for the 2024 Oscoda Township CWSRF in the amount of $60,613.75 to be paid from the 2024 CWSRF checking account.
Support, Sutton.
A motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve invoice 112715. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbar?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the pay request number 3 from Shop.
Okay, our fourth item in my report will be the third pay request in the Phase 6 water main project in the amount of $388,642.60, leaving a total of $1,175,459.40 remaining on this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the third pay request from Schaff and Associates Construction in the amount of $388,642.60 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account.
I would make a motion to approve the third pay request from Schaff and Associates Construction Incorporated in the amount of $388,642.60 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited in the township's account.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Wusterbarth. To pay the pay request number 3. Is there discussion, questions, comments? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is pay request number 4.
Okay, our fifth item in my report will be the fourth pay request in the Phase 6 water main project in the amount of $211,835.43, leaving a total of $1,060,700. Okay, scratch that and start over. $1,060,780.97 remaining in this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the fourth pay request from Schaff and Associates in the amount of $211,835.43 to be paid from C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township's account. I will note, if you are reading off my action, it is the fourth pay request,
Yes.
just so you know.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the fourth pay request from Schaff and Associates Construction, Inc. in the amount of $211,835.43 to be paid from the C2R2 funds after reimbursement is requested and deposited into the township account.
Support, Sutton.
And I would just like to comment, I know Mr. Freeman stated that they're making good progress out there. Is it that obviously both these pay requests came in the last 2 weeks since our last meeting?
Yes, we only, they submit just before the end of the month to make the last board meeting of the month. So anything that would have been received has to get reviewed by Rowe and then reviewed by Mr. Freeman before it makes it here.
Okay.
So
So that would indicate that they are making good progress if they're got over almost $600,000 in work done in the last 2 weeks. I don't think it quite works that way, but that's what it would show. Any other comment, question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Community Development Director.
all right, the sixth item in my report is a Community Development Director position. Previously, the board had posted for the Economic Improvement Director position, and that position remains unfilled. I recently brought forward the idea of going back to the Community Development Director position to the Economic Improvement Committee. Having a dedicated leader that can solely focus on economic improvement, I feel, would be more productive and feasible for the budgeted salary. The salary requested will be between $48,000 and $55,000, and to be a full-time employee of the township with benefits included. This also comes as a recommendation of the Economic Improvement Committee.
Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the recreation of the full-time position of Community Development Director with a salary between $48,000 and $55,000 annually.
Would you consider amending your motion to include closing the EIC position so that there's not an open position floating around out there?
Yes, I would.
Then I would support that.
We have a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Spencer. Discussion. Questions, comments? I think it's a good idea. I think
Good.
I think it's a good idea, someone that can, it's a little different position. We've had this position before. I think it's someone that could work integrally with the EIC committee. And if we can get the right person in there, I think would be a great idea. Any other discussion?
Yeah, so I just had some question about what was included in the packet. Is this the version that was reviewed and approved by the EIC?
Yes.
Okay, because there's still some typos in it, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to see that we should correct, because I think there's some ambiguity. If we could just start on page 1, which is page 69 of the packet. In the organizational summary, the second paragraph, in addition to Sandy Beach's, Oscoda's home to the Oscoda Wordsmith A-Port.
Yeah, okay.
And I was going to recommend that maybe we call it the Airport Authority, since we go into the acronyms for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. I figure we might as well give them their full name. And then the second, on page 2, it is the paragraph that begins with, under the supervision of the Economic Improvement Committee, which would be the second paragraph under general purpose. And my point on this is that this is in contradiction to another section later on that talks about this position reporting to the superintendent, which I think is appropriate. So it's just there's a contradiction in terms of who's supervising and under whose direction, I guess is the point. I was just wondering if you had clarity on what was meant.
Okay. Well, I think at that point, the EIC is one part of supervision.
Right.
Ultimately, it would be myself or whomever is in the superintendent position, and I guess we could add that in there so it doesn't get confusing, or take it out.
That's fine. I wondered if this was kind of like what we were envisioning with the Economic Improvement Director.
Yes.
Where he reported to the EIC, but he was supervised, or rather, he was ultimately directly reporting to you.
Correct.
Okay, then that's fine. Then the next, within that same paragraph, director serves as staff support to various boards, commissions, and committees. Does this mean some sort of clerical thing? I don't understand what that was to mean.
No, that would be more towards like if, say, Mr. Buckner, the planning and zoning director,
Yep.
had something that one of the people that comes in to his office and wants to do a site plan, if that director knew of properties or something like that. He could assist with things like that.
Got it.
Because there have been situations like the Guide to Development. There's a whole group that sits in an initial conceptual review, and the previous EIC director, this community development director, would sit in on those. It's just a part of that group. Or the Parks and Rec Committee, the previous EIC director was in that committee.
Right.
That's the type of groups.
I see, thank you. So then, and then as assigned by the EIC board, so the EIC isn't a board, I think we had this conversation in another document with the facade grant. The C is committee, it's not a board, so it'd be as assigned by the EIC. And I wondered if you wanted to restrict it to specifically the EIC. I could imagine you might be one who would want to direct this as well, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
maybe to expand it to the EIC or you.
Okay.
And then, not to get crazy here, but page 4, it's the first bullet on the top, it's 72 in the packet. And the correction is just in, it looks like the paragraph existed, but some things were added to the end. So there's this "and" stuck in the middle of the list. It's just the "and" should just come out.
I gotcha.
That's all. And now that I understand the hierarchy, I don't have any further questions on that. So I did have one question, and it's unrelated to this specifically, but rather, when you envisioned this position, did you envision this as being part of the EIC, the Economic Improvement Director position, and using that position that existed to get started on this position?
Yes.
I see, okay, got it. Okay. Fair enough. I would only say, this is just my commentary on this. I'm in favor of this position, just to be clear. But when we talked about the Personnel Director's authority in Resolution 2024-04, we talked about pre-existing and budgeted positions. What defines an existing position is a title, budget, job description, maybe even a person already in that position. But since this position is actually trying to pull back something that existed years ago, I think it was maybe even Ann's position, if I remember right, there was no budget for it. So I just wanted to say, this is a different title, it's a different amount, it's a different job description, therefore not the same position. But as I said, I'm still in favor of this position, but I wanted to point it out. Thank you.
Do you have any ideas on changing, on what you would like to see changed in the verbiage? And are you looking to postpone until the next meeting so that we can have it reviewed?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, I think these were just some edits that were fine. I
just want to make sure that the document is up to snuff with all of the board members, and if it is, then a couple of changes, with a couple of changes.
I wrote them all down.
Would you amend your motion
worried about
to include those changes, and I think we'd be all set.
Yep.
With corrections presented.
And I would support that still. I'm the one that support that.
Yes,
Whoever supported it.
Whoever
You were
supported it.
support. Any other comments, discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Teaser?
Yes.
Mr. Worcesterbach?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the ADA kayak launcher at Ratliff Park. I would make a motion to approve the purchase of the ADA kayak launcher in the amount of $52,180.89 to be paid from Fund 101-000-720.439.
Support, Sutton.
We have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton, to approve the purchase of the ADA kayak launcher. And this has been a project that I've been kind of pushing for a couple of years. We applied for a grant at one point, and we're not successful with that. We do have revenue that's come in from the marijuana funds, and we also have a commitment from Vila, has contributed $4,000 towards this project. So if anybody hasn't been out there, if you go out to Ratliff Park and see the pier that the DPW has built, it's beautiful. They did a fantastic job building that pier out there over this winter. So I would like to see that completed with this kayak launch put in there and have a nice facility there. So that's any other discussion, questions, comments?
No, it looks good. I was out there this weekend.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
I'm glad to see it coming back.
Yeah.
Well, I love this.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Wurstabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is under the resolution and ordinance. Next is amendment to 165 ordinance.
I would make a motion to approve the ordinance to amend zoning ordinance 165 of Article 6 of the Charter Township of Oscoda zoning ordinance.
Support, Sutton.
Discussion.
So we're dropping the fees. Tell us.
Well, currently our initial licensing fee is $5,000. An annual fee has been $5,000 as well. The townships all over the state, we can't charge exorbitant fees for these types of things or even typical zoning permits. So we're pulling that back a little bit, actually half. I had talked to Chief Boland about this. The administration fees or the administrative time that I have in this for each application is literally 2 hours for each one. And that's the paperwork when the applicant comes in and refiles, me filling out paperwork and then waiting for emails and paperwork to come from the state and then doing all that stuff. This also, that fee covers any police response times to those facilities that we do have in the township, which are 2. We didn't see where $5,000 was being met, so we pulled it back. As you guys know, zoning fees aren't a money-making thing. We can just charge up to what it costs to administrate what we're doing. So I'm asking that, based on the recommendation by the Planning Commission and the resolution written by our planner, that we adjust our fees from $5,000 annual fee down to $2,500. And these will be reviewed periodically, every year or so. I'll review all the fees and see where adjustments need to be made.
Have both of these and specifically, was this zoning ordinance update, was this reviewed by the township attorney? And the reason that I ask is because the way that the township attorney was talking about doing ordinances and resolutions in the past means that there's supposed to be some documentation in here that removes previous ordinances or previous resolutions from being part of the problem in the future, so that there's one ordinance, one resolution that is from here on out. Right. And I don't see that in here. Sorry, I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I think it's a great idea. I support it. I just want to make sure that the attorney does review it and that it is worded correctly to negate any previous ordinances or resolutions that may or may not be on the books, so that there's no confusion in the future.
So the attorney has reviewed both the ordinance amendment and has provided the next item on the agenda, which is a resolution, which bypasses the public hearing part of amending the ordinance. So she has reviewed both of these.
And did you see in there where she negated it?
Yeah,
I
she
did
didn't
not see
negate it.
I don't see it in there. That's why I'm kind
Our
of.
meeting in February, she said she would do this.
If I might.
Right, and I don't know if that's because of the amendment to the ordinance here, but I have an email if you want to see it that she reviewed and gave the all forward, so.
And I think the point the attorney made was that she wants to see resolutions because any new resolution overrides any previous resolution. So you don't have to state in that resolution that's replacing a previous resolution. It automatically is the current resolution in place.
If it has that verbiage in there.
This is an
it doesn't have
amendment.
to have
This
that
isn't,
verbiage.
this
No, it
is
doesn't.
not
But that's not what you
a
said.
new
That's not what she
resolution.
said.
This is not a new resolution.
You're correct, it's not.
Oh,
Well,
so-
it's not an, okay, the amendment to the ordinance is the first part. So we are amending the ordinance. We did not, the fees in this case for recreational marijuana were not approved by a resolution. They were put in the ordinance. That's why we have to do it this way. We amend the ordinance first. The resolution is the first of its kind. The only other resolution we have is for medical marijuana, which is a whole different animal.
Yep.
So we are doing this correctly.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's why
Usually,
the fees are taken
renewal
out.
fees are not written in the ordinance, but in this case, it was written into the
Yes.
ordinance.
Right. So they're changing that and they're
taking
making
that
a
out.
resolution that's
Written into the
the.
resolution.
Okay,
You mean?
all right. Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton, to approve the ordinance amendment to ordinance 165. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wursterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes?
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes,
Mr. Cummings?
Yes,
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the resolution 2024-12.
I would make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-12 for the Charter Township of Oscoda Commercial Recreation Marijuana Facility Fee Schedule.
Support, Sutton?
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton, to approve resolution 2024-12. Discussion, comments, questions? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Mr. Taser?
Yes?
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wursterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes,
Mr. Cummings?
yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
I'd like to toss out a thank you to Mr. Buckner, but I think he ran. Okay,
Left the
all right,
building.
well, there we go. Moving on. Thank you.
Elvis has left the building. Now, next, moving on to the other category. First up is the Corridor Improvement Authority creation request. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the proposal to establish a corridor improvement authority.
Support, Sutton?
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Sutton. Discussion.
I do. So when we create a CIA, the purpose is to capture increases in the property values, I guess, of the businesses along that corridor. It's also my understanding, if my recollection is correct, from back in the days when we had an economic improvement director, that it also raises the number of liquor licenses you can have in the area. Okay, back to the first point. So my concern is, has there been any research or attention given to the impact of this on existing businesses who are not corporate held, smaller businesses that are in that corridor, where, it's what I'm concerned about is taxing businesses out of business, and wondered if anyone could speak to that, because I don't know.
The tax captures on the Corridor Improvement Authority are captured from taxes that are already captured, and that gain is basically an agreement. That's what you're doing in that corridor improvement for all those individual taxes. So as you have an increase at the county, township, those increases would be captured in the authority. So
it's
that's
not
what
an
they're
additional money.
Correct.
It's a share of the.
Yes. And
Fair
then the big
enough.
thing with
Good.
the liquor licenses is that does directly affect our small businesses, because if you have a restaurant right now, You might have great dinner, but you might want a glass of wine or beer, and they
course.
can't serve it because we're already over a limit for liquor licenses.
No, I'm tracking
So
that.
it gives them, our small businesses, more of an opportunity to offer everything they want on that menu, and then us to capture the money that's being captured from municipalities and other entities, not the businesses.
Fair enough. Thank you.
It's very similar to a DDA. The only problem with the DDA is it's restricted to such a small area in the past.
Yeah.
This expands it into our entire business area, all the way down the corridor, down to F41 and up to F41. And a TIF is not an additional tax.
Right, I got that.
It's
Yeah,
the same tax you're paying, it's only
An allocation.
as they improve the businesses and the value of the property increases. When you start off, you set a baseline of what your taxes are now. And then the increments that go up from that, that money then comes to that
Yeah.
corridor improvement authority to spend in.
Where would the money go if we didn't do this? If you're saying that the money has
county or
already
the
been
county?
taxed,
The county.
and what does the county do with it? Do we know?
What they do with everything.
Oh, well then,
All the things you see
Definitely.
listed on your tax bill, with additional money for that.
That's, so those increases when they come in would be the capture, and that's what
Oh,
the
yeah,
benefit
I-
is all of those other entities are looking at what they capture now. And then that additional, as you start getting your property values raised, that additional is what we're capturing. That way it doesn't cost the business. The county can still look and say, well, we captured this much at this rate. We'll give up X amount percentage on those.
So this authority is basically saying, this money is already being taken from the businesses, but we'll keep it local, thank you.
But
We'll
you're
spend
bringing
here.
it back to put into
Bring it
those
back.
business areas for those businesses, their infrastructure and the things they need, so they're not having to put that bill.
Next question, if you don't mind. And that is, what kind of a board needs to be put into position for the management of a
What
CIA?
we've talked about is converting the EIC to a CIA board.
Yep.
But the requirement for the improvement board is that we would have to have more business, 50% on that board. It has to be 50% business owners. Or people that live within a half mile of the corridor improvement district. So
Okay.
we would have to have some additional business owners
Right.
on that.
Is it what size board is it?
5 to 9 people?
5 to 9?
5 to 9 people with a majority at least 50% have to be business owners or live within a half mile of the area.
Do we need to give up the EIC or convert it? I mean, doesn't the EIC continue to have a role? I mean, Alpena still has an EIC, Grand Rapids has an EIC, or multiple actually, but I mean, do we have to give it up, or do we just see it as having no value with the CIA?
The corridor really expands us out to the main business area, and then off of that corridor improvement authority,
I see.
you can add additional ones in later.
Okay,
So you're basically sectionalizing our economic growth in those areas and attacking it. So your EIC, you have a few members, you would just take a few. You'd basically have 4 members left from that, and you would want 5 from businesses to meet that need. And that way the businesses would have all that input. You just have your 4 or less that would manage that other end, but as it grows, you would focus on those areas. So it's controlled growth versus, right now, the EIC is trying to run in every direction.
Yeah.
So you would focus them on that corridor, which would then take care of your entire downtown US 23 district and then 41 all the way to the front gate of the base. And I know it takes care of the base, their contracts and economic development out there. Just kind of compartmentalizing it and focusing it on our businesses and what we have now and growing those areas.
okay, thank you.
Any other discussion, questions?
Understood.
So does this document say that we're going to remove the Economic Improvement Committee?
This is-
Or
this
is this just
doc-
establishing the authority
This is to procure the,
To create it.
yeah.
to create the
Yes.
authority? Okay, so we'd have to deal with the board later.
It's all gonna come back to us for final approval as they get everything.
This is basically to approve the $6,600 fee to Beckett Rader to create this, go through all the documentation and everything we have to do legally to create this corridor improvement.
So that it's done properly.
Yeah, and then it would still be brought to the board, would need to approve that.
I got another question. So, all right, so, without digging up, past nightmare here, when we had a DDA, one of the problems I think we suffered from was training for those members. And so I guess my question is, being that this is this sounds like a much more formal, much more official, now there's money involved and they're the ones with the money, not the township board. What control do we know can be put in place so that the money is spent correctly, people are properly trained, we're not sitting on top of something that's going to blow up? Any thought on that? Have you heard from other places?
If you mold the EIC, you would still have your training requirements as you're bringing that in. You'd have probably a year once we create until we intake capture.
Okay.
And through Township Governance Academy, our MTA platform
Right.
that has it now, you can take the TIF classes, there's corridor improvement.
Okay,
there's
there are
tax
specific
captures,
courses
all
to
of
this.
that. And that's where, and we would want those corridor improvement members, as well as your business members, to get their RRC certification.
Sure.
Which again would help them, and that would be really huge to see a business
That's
owner
down
get
the
it.
road, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
let's be honest, RRC
Yes,
certification
it-
for individuals is way too much.
Yes.
But, and down the road, but can we mandate or agree that that's part of this
Yeah,
agreement?
you would
that
structure that right in.
We can, is that something we need to know now, or we can decide on later?
When they're putting it all together, that's something that we know we want in there, and
Okay.
it's still gonna come to the board for approval, so
enough.
anything at that time that we wanna add in would still.
I just want to make sure that we don't run into problems that we've heard so much about and we've experienced on this board
Oh, yes.
in the past. So,
Lessons learned.
yeah, what a concept, right?
And hopefully, with this fee to Beckett and Rader, they would not only create the CIA, but give direction
Yeah,
to that in creating that new board. And then, of course, the community development director that we would hopefully hire would help in getting that training as well, so that it's, like you say, it's run properly.
right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the firewall purchase request.
I would make a motion to approve the purchase of an updated and new Sonic Wall TZ670 network security firewall appliance from VC3 Inc., quote number VC3Q29049, in the amount of $7,827 to bring our current firewall up to date, or remove the old firewall and bring it up to date with this new one.
Support Cummings.
Discussion.
So can you tell us what's wrong with, can you tell us what's wrong with the current firewall? I know the answer, but if you could explain this. What's wrong with the current firewall and why do we need to replace it?
Basically, the current one is aged out at this point in time. VC3's been doing manual updates to it to keep us as close to compliance as possible.
Okay.
With the addition of more MDTs and stuff, we need more licensing for the connection back to the PD mainly, as well as anybody who's using a laptop to remote in on town hall side.
Right.
The current Cisco one keeps failing. I know Ms. Klein's having problems repeatedly with hers getting kicked out. This is the recommendation from them of what they would like to put in for us, and we contract with them, so got to take their advice for it.
Yeah, we have to use them. Okay. And this is obviously from them, so good. All right.
And this is an appliance that would be installed at the local township hall building, not a remote facility. This
Correct.
actually protects the infrastructure at township hall.
Correct.
Any other discussion, questions?
I defer down to the end of the table for this
Yeah,
one.
this end is our technical advisors here, yeah. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the request by the police chief for job reclassification request.
Good evening, everyone.
I'll make a motion to approve the police chief's request to reclassify Ms. Halverson job title to administrative secretary position with a pay of $19.06 per hour.
Support, Sutton?
Discussion. Chief, did you want to address the board?
Yes, thank you. Pat Halverson's been our clerical assistant at the department for over a year now, and she's been doing a great job. She actually does her job, and then she's asked for more duties in the department, which I didn't ask her to take, but she's taken on FOIA requests, transition into the front office to paperless, maintaining training records. She has a bachelor degree. And with this, I'd like to get her job reclassification from clerical assistant to admin secretary part-time. With this, she has no benefits, no vacation, no sick days or no medical. She's been a great asset to the department, and I'd like to change her reclassification and get her a little more money.
Is she going to remain as a part-time?
Yes. The only time she'd probably work full-time is when my other secretary's off on vacation.
I would just like to say I'm in full support of this. I've been, John started taking our stuff digital when he was clerk. I've continued doing that, and under Chief Bullen and with Pat being able to take that digital, she also has taken on the FOIA end, which is a big reason for having all this digital, is being able to ascertain, gather the information for requests quicker, less cost to the citizens, but it's going to be amazing back there because they have as many records back there in paper as I do with their case files, and even more in storage because of how long they have to retain them due to the document retention schedule. So.
Yeah, I think it's important when you get a good employee and they've proven themselves that they hit increments with what they're doing and their abilities.
And not a lot of people like taking all those documents and digitizing them, but it takes a special breed to want to sit there and do that. It's once you get there and you start utilizing it, the more years we get in there, and like I said, there's a lot there, and anybody who's excited to take on that task to make the police force more efficient, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Going above and beyond.
Any other discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. Next is the Van Etten Lake weed control. We had a bit of a kerfuffle with that.
So,
Is there a motion?
okay.
I will make a motion to adjust the contract with Solitude that we had previously approved to include the pay increases for over the next 3 years.
Support, Sutton?
We have a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton. Discussion? Questions? Anybody? Ms. Klein, did you want to?
I was just going to say, this is basically, the board approved Solitude, but in order to put the annual increases in the contract, I just need you to approve the 2 increases for 2025 and 2026. I'm looking them up right now.
And
Where are those located?
the problem that arose was I received a contract to sign from Solitude a week ago or more. And I wanted to double check with Ms. Klein to make sure that the copy that they had in there was the copy that the attorney had recommended.
Right.
And when I conferred with Ms. Klein, it was. And so when I got back home and got on my laptop or my computer to sign the document, it had been removed. Solitude had pulled it. And so I emailed them back, say, can you resend that to me somehow? It got lost. And then I got an email from them saying that their legal department had reviewed it and they wanted to have this section added to it covering the increased costs over the next 3 years because it's a 3-year contract. I thought it was a little odd that at the last minute, after they had sent me the contract to sign, that their legal team reviewed it and pulled it.
Sounds like an oops.
The interesting part is they did this exact same thing to the Cedar Lake Improvement Board. They're struggling with the same problem, although it isn't a fee, they're only doing a 1 year, but they had a problem with the amount of indemnity that was being required on there, so. Our attorney has gone over it, we've made that correction, so all we need to do tonight, this board, is to approve the contract which we previously approved with that language of the pay increase, rate increases for the next 3 years.
Yes, so it would be for the year 2025, increase product pricing by 6%, and in the year 2026, increase product pricing by an additional 6%.
Any discussion,
Do you need to
questions?
say that?
Do you need to amend your motion for that?
I just need it, yeah,
Yes, stated.
yes,
So
So they sent us
would
the
it be with
contract.
annual increases of 6%?
yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
for
I'll amend my
2025
motion
and
to
2026.
approve the contract, the Solitude, with the 6% increases for 2025 and 2026.
I will support that motion.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed.
Bill, I'd just like to add, so most of the public, because this is, the cost for this is not borne by Oscoda Township. While we are as a transfer, it's paid for by all the riparian property owners at Van Etten Lake. So this doesn't affect our budget in any way.
No, does not affect our basic tax rolls for the entire township. Next is the Parks and Recreation Director pay increase request.
So would you like me, I will state for the motion that the requested pay increase would be an increase to $60,000 a year with an added 10% bonus based on the net revenues received at the end of the year.
So I will make a motion to approve a pay rate for the Park and Recreation Director of $60,000 salary per year and a 10% bonus at the end of each year based on the net revenue produced by Old Orchard Park and generated to Oscoda Township.
Support.
So the park gets roughly 10 to 14,000 visitors a month. Now, with 525 sites, including cabins and yurts, at a minimum of campers per site, 2,500 people visit the park per weekend. So between May 1st and September 30th, that's quite a few people. Approximately 70 to 80,000 people per season. And now we have fall camping that's becoming very popular, and along with the park's Halloween display that they do for the month of October. Last year, they had 75 to 90% full every weekend, which is amazing. And we need to keep in mind, too, that these campers, when they come, they shop, they visit Oscoda, they use our services. So it's an all-around good thing that they've been doing out at the park. So for the last year, 2022, the park brought in $1,037,428.
And that was net?
No,
That is,
gross.
that's gross. With expenditures, the net revenue was $134,915. That was for 2022. For 2023, we brought in $1,072,234. We expended $885, but our net revenue there was $186,457. So I thought with a 10% bonus incentive, Al, currently works his behind off out there 24/7, 7 days a week, he's having to run this like a small city. And in order to keep encouraging that, I feel like if his current pay right now, that he would receive for 2023 is $56,181. So I thought with a bump up to 60,000 and a 10% bonus of what he can bring in, I think that would keep him on the right path to making more money for the township.
I think we have to understand that this is a unique position in the township.
Yeah.
It's the only salary position that actually generates additional revenue to the township. There's no other employee that we have that we pay anybody. I mean, they do a lot of good work, don't get me wrong, but they don't actually generate revenue like this position does. That's why I thought that the 10% of a bonus at the end of the year, so we can calculate how much it generated and how much the expenses were, and then what the net is, you would receive a 10% bonus on that. And that gives incentive for that position to make improvements to the park, to bring in more campers, to make it better, raise the rates. Whereas without that, I mean, he's been doing a great job of that anyway. If we had a lesser person in there, they would probably say, well, we'll just make what we make and that's the end of it. But when you put that bonus in effect, it generates incentive for someone to go above and beyond to create more at that facility, to generate more money for the township. So I think it's a great way to compensate that position.
They also do Christmas in July. Everybody decorates for Christmas in July. It's pretty amazing.
I just like what Al's done out there because he keeps a very high occupancy rate. I think it's like above 94%, which is unheard of for the number of campsites that we have. And you just got a waiting list at times and people that just want to come. So it helps us all out with the businesses around as well.
Also with his innovative ideas such as bringing in the rental bicycles with a bike path right next to it.
Mm-hmm.
And expanding on that, I think that's he's
that's
doing his work there.
That's going to also, that's going to create some additional work for the people at Old Orchard Park because we need to keep that bike path cleared and maintained since it's in Oscoda Township.
Yep.
And I think the DPW will be taking care of parts of it from the school out towards there, but for the part from Old Orchard Park all the way to Rhea Road, we're asking the Old Orchard Park personnel to, and basically it's just clearing any limbs that fall in there and the fall blowing the leaves off and those kinds of things. It's not a huge, the path itself is pretty self-maintained, but it's not like phase one that's asphalt where it has to be plowed off if you want to use it in the winter. It isn't used in the winter, but just some additional work that we're planning on the Old Orchard Park people to help keep that path open and clean so they can use it out there. So.
Al's idea also with the intern program, I think is excellent. It shows his initiative to make those type of improvements out there, so.
Yeah, he's been doing a good job for us out there at the park for, what's he been with us, 12 years?
Yes.
12 years.
I can't help it. I want to share a story on this topic. 8 years and 2 months, 8 years and a month ago, I met Al on my tour after I joined the township board. And while I was out there and I was meeting with him and our current then superintendent was with us, I was walking around and I was starting to see our first yurt, for example, and seeing just how many, being that it's still early in the year, seeing how many sites there were and starting to actually see it. I'd never stayed there yet, so I didn't have the experience. And I commented to him, based on the size of the effort and the opportunity that he had, that he should be getting a profit sharing. That he should actually be getting some kind of a reward for growth. And at that time, he hadn't been pulling off $1 million gross per year. I think it was maybe at 700,000 or 800,000. So seeing that he's increased to this, I am completely, I think it's a great game, and I think he's a great guy to be, and qualified to be able to play this game. And it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. A great idea for Oscoda Township.
I agree. Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes, motion passed. That concludes the business we have. Next is public comment. We'd ask if you come to the podium and state your name for the record, please. Yes.
Oh, sure. Hi there, Kathy Woosterbarth. I'm here to provide some really, really great news in the PFAS world. Hopefully everyone has heard about it, but I'm going to update you with some details that I passed out or had passed out there. I'm going to read the White House's press release. So April 10th of 2024, the Biden-Harris administration issued the first ever national legally enforceable drinking water standard to protect communities from exposure to harmful PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also known as forever chemicals. Exposure to PFAS has been linked to deadly cancers, impacts to the liver and heart, and immune and developmental damages to infants and children. This final rule represents the most significant step to protect public health under EPA's PFAS strategic roadmap. The final rule will reduce PFAS exposure for approximately 100 million people, prevent thousands of deaths, and reduce tens of thousands of serious illnesses. This announcement complements President Biden's government-wide action plan to combat PFAS pollution. And so what I gave you was a list of the PFAS that are being regulated. And what I thought would be helpful for you is in that listing of the PFAS, it includes where they're commonly found. So that can be a little bit confusing and it's not always clear. So I thought you might find that helpful. So just for you all, the PFAS that will be regulated will be the PFOA and PFOS, the PFNA, PFHXS, PFBS, and GenX chemicals. And then there's some other combinations that will be measured in a hazard index. And I'd like to read to you some details about how those regulations will be put in place in the time frames. So public water systems will have 3 years after the rule promulgation to comply with monitoring requirements, at which point they must begin reporting the results of their monitoring. The initial monitoring requirements will mandate 4 quarterly samples for larger systems serving populations over 10,000 people and biannual samples from smaller systems serving populations of 10,000 or fewer. Beginning 5 years after promulgation, if the levels of PFAS detected in these samples exceed the maximum contaminant levels, public water systems must notify their served communities and take steps to reduce levels of PFAS in their drinking water. So I was fortunate to be able to be in Washington, D.C. the day that they announced these. Myself and Tony Spaniola, we actually were at the EPA. They were in a very celebratory mood in that building, and it was a really great opportunity. And I want to just let you know that there were a lot of really dedicated people that worked on these rules, and we got to meet the staff that were in charge of it, and it's really amazing. It's historic. The last time, from my understanding, the last time a new drinking water standard was put in place by the EPA was decades ago, like in the late 70s. So it is historic, and you know, we're very happy about that. So just wanted you to have that information too.
Thank you for your efforts. Thank you. Any other public comment? Board comment. Mr. Wistbarth.
I would just like to add to what my wife just stated with her trip to Washington, it's really been a combination, or taken 10 to 12 years to get to this point, and it's a group of many people. I mean, I watch her do probably 10 calls a week from all hours in the morning to all hours in the late evening, along with trips in the state and nationally with kind of the national groups related not only what's going on here in Wordsmith, but what's going on with these forever chemicals around the country. It's been a total grassroots campaign, been kind of funded by the individuals involved. So I'd like to thank everybody that's done that here in this community, in the state of Michigan and the United States, because without that, we wouldn't be here today. So it just goes to show that if you want to make a change, you can, and it's dedication and commitment. And I have to say that she has that. I see it every day.
Mr. Taser? Nope. Mr. Cummings?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Spencer?
No, thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
Quick and easy, just reminding everybody the upcoming May 7th, 2024 election for the Oscoda area's schools bond proposal. Thank all of our absentee ballots. They have been going out and coming back in within 3 to 5 days. So a lot of our citizens are getting those turned around right back to us. And anybody who hasn't utilized absentee, we hope to see on May 7th.
All right, thank you. I would just like to commend Ms. Wisterbarth again on all of the efforts that she's put forth with the NOW group to help with the contamination from the base. With this new standard set by the EPA 10 years ago, when all this started here at Wordsmith, the Air Force was content, because they're a federal agency, they had to regulate based on what the EPA standard was for water, which was 70 parts per trillion. And what their statement was, any wells or water in the area that was over the 70 parts per trillion, they would pay to get water mains put in to service those people. Well, we didn't have, I think there was one, and it was simply someone that kept a well when there was already water available at the street, so the Air Force paid to hook them up. Had we had the current EPA levels back then, I think the Air Force would have been paying for a lot of water mains that we have undertaken to put in. Fortunately, we've been able to pay for that with grants to cover those. It hasn't cost the township. However, there has been some cost, and we have been in talks with the Air Force, and they've been pushing them to reimburse the township for some of the loans that we've had to take out to extend water mains, because I don't think that, I've said this many times, I don't think the township should have to go in debt to put in water mains to protect our people from potential hazard. So in the Air Force, in our talks, have been somewhat receptive to that possibility. What we need to show to them is where we spent the money, where the homes were that we put into service for, and I'm hoping we can get some reimbursement from the Air Force to cover some of the loans. That would be the DWSRF funds that we've taken on from the state. They're low interest loans, but still there's interest nonetheless. So this is a good thing from the EPA setting these standards, and it will guide the Air Force and the DOD into what they're required to do. Another matter, I would like to apologize to anyone that was inconvenienced when we had the township hall closed. We had done some minor construction at the hall. We cut a hole through some cement blocks. We had done it previously on as you're coming into the township hall, would be on the left side of the door with no problems at all. There was just the dust from the cement that we cut through to put that absentee voter ballot chute in. When we went into the treasurer's office and did basically the same thing, we cut into the cement, and of course it generates dust, but there was also some dust that we couldn't identify. And it was relayed to us later that it might be some sort of insulation that may possibly have asbestos in it. So once we determined that, we thought, and I conferred with Ms. Klein, and we thought it would be best to protect our employees and the public, to close it down, bring a company in to do some air testing, air quality testing, and to check the building out before we went further. We had that done, that testing was done, and they found that the levels were way below 1%. So the air quality was safe, and we were able to reopen the Township Hall on Wednesday morning. So I would apologize to anybody that was inconvenienced by those couple of days that we were closed, but it was for the safety of our employees and for the public, because we just wanted to make sure that everything was safe for everybody involved. So that's my comment, and with that, I will call this meeting adjourned.